Hi, welcome back. This is Professor Ridge, and today's lesson will be covering formulas, models, and geometry, section 1.5. Okay, so our first objective for solving formulas. Starting off with the definition of formulas, simply just an equation that uses letters to represent a relationship between two or more quantities. So an example of the formula would be like this. Area of a circle is given by the formula A equals pi r squared. Now, what do we mean when we say to solve a formula? For a specified letter, a specific letter. Well, we mean to get that variable all by itself. We want to isolate it on one side of the equation. So if I were to ask you to solve that area formula, pi r squared for r, so right now it's solved for A, for area. Well, what if I want to rework it and solve it for r? So what I mean is I want to get the r all by itself. So I got to get rid of this pi. And basically you're going to do just like there were numbers and use all your rules for solving an equation, all your properties of equality, to get that r all by itself. Now we want r, not r squared. Now problem here, this is actually a quadratic equation. R squared. We'll cover this in more detail later. You probably should have seen it at the end of Math 50, but just in case, don't worry about it too much right now. We'll cover it in greater detail later in the course. But so I want to get r by itself, not r squared. So I'm going to actually square root both sides. Technically, the square root of r squared would be the absolute value of r. But since this is a geometry problem and r is always positive, we don't have to worry about the absolute value. Again, don't worry about that so much right now. So again, our goal to solve for r is to isolate the variable, isolate the r. So once you get r all by itself, you're done. You've solved that formula for r. Okay, so now I'd like to do a few exercises from the book. So if we start with number 14. This is the simple interest formula, I equals PRT. This is going to be a formula that you'll be expected to know. Interest equals principal times rate times time. So it's a simple interest formula. And I want you to solve it for r, another r. So here with r is radius, here r is for rate. Okay, so the idea again is I want to isolate the r. I want to get r all by itself. So if you have trouble, you can like put in numbers, say like this was 20. Now this one might be a little confusing, but what you would do to get r by itself is you would divide by 5, cancel that, and you would divide by a 2. So you get r equals 20 divided by 10 is 2. But So my claim is it's actually easier to solve for formulas because you don't have to actually figure out the actual solution here. You can just say, all right, I want to get r by itself, so I got to divide out the p. Golden rule algebra, which you do one side, do the other. And I want to get rid of that t, so I got to divide it out also. So I can see the p's cancel, the t's cancel. You get r by itself. And since you don't know what these numbers are, you can't do it, so you just write it down. And now we're done. We got r by itself. We solved this formula for r. All right, let's try number 16. So this is a formula from physics. You won't be expected to know this one, but the technique to solve for m, you know, obviously you have to know how to do that. All right. So again, we want to get this m by itself. So let's start off by clearing this fraction. You're going to multiply both sides by r. So r over 1, same thing. So those cancel. So we get fr. Now again, our goal, we're solving for m, so our goal is get m by itself. So now what we're going to do is get rid of this times v squared, so you're going to do the opposite. And you're going to divide by v squared. Golden rule, just do one side, you got to do the other. And again, since I don't know any of these numbers, I can't calculate it, so I just write it down. And over here, we just have m by itself. It's isolated, so that tells me I'm done. Okay, let's move on to another geometry one. Perimeter of a rectangle is twice the width plus twice the length. And I want you to solve this for L. Oh, and I wrote that backwards, but it doesn't matter, same thing. Okay, so again, we want to get L by itself. So we need to get rid of this 2W. So we're going to subtract 2W from both sides. Over here, 2W minus 2W is 0, plus the 2L, it's just 2L. Over here, they're not like terms, so you can't do anything with it. We don't know what these numbers are, so we can't simplify it or calculate it. So we just write it down, P minus 2W. And then, again, our goal is we want to get L by itself. So we want to get rid of this times 2. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And I got L by itself. And that's my answer. Now, don't do this. This is a common mistake. I know it's real tempting to cancel those 2's, but this is not, you can't do that. It's not true. Don't do that. So what you could do is, if you feel like you want to cancel that 2, you can split this up into 2 fractions. So this, and I can split it up into 2 fractions, and then I can cancel the 2 here. So this answer is equivalent to this answer. This one, the one that I have in the box, is preferred though. Okay, but this one would be acceptable. Again, I would prefer that answer. Okay, but definitely you cannot cancel this 2 with this 2. So whenever you want to cancel or reduce a fraction, you got to factor something out and then cancel common factors. There's no 2 in this first term, so you cannot just cancel a 2. All right, let's try number 33. A equals Q1, Q sub 1, Q sub 2, Q sub 3, all divided by n. Solve it for n. Okay, so this looks like a formula for averaging three quantities. And n would be, in this case, would probably be 3 because you got three quantities. All right, so we want to solve it for n. So first step is let's clear the fraction, since the n's on the bottom especially. So we're going to multiply both sides by n. Here I'm just going to do a shortcut. So I got a times n equals, these n's cancel. And I want to get the n by itself, so I got to divide both sides by a. And now it's done. Number 40. Now on this one, ST equals n plus SM. Solve it for S. Okay, now so pay attention to this technique. Whenever you have more than one term with the variable you're going for, your first step would be to collect all those terms onto the same side. Get them all on the same side. So let's just do an alternate problem. So let's say I have 5x equals 8 plus, say, 3x. And I asked you to solve this. And then the idea would be, all right, so your first step, simplify both sides. Okay, it is. And then the next step would be get all the x terms on one side. So you would subtract 3x. And then you're going to divide both sides by 8. So we're going to follow this outline again. And we're viewing the t, the m, and the n as numbers. And the s is our x in this case. So we're trying to get s by itself. So our first step is get all the variable terms on the same side. So I need to get rid of this variable term. So I'm going to subtract SM from both sides. So we get ST minus SM equals n. Now, notice when we did 5x minus 3x, since these were numbers, we did the 5. Oh, I guess I can't. This should have been 2x. Okay, that's better. Okay, so notice, since there are numbers, I can do 5 minus 3 is 2. But I don't know what these the t and the m are. So what I do actually is, this is that step when you're combining like terms. What you're really doing is you're factoring. So you're factoring the x out and you're subtracting 5 minus 3. See, 5x minus 3x. Well, what you do again is, what you're really doing is you're factoring the x out using the distributive property in reverse, and then you can do 5 minus 3 is 2. So we're going to combine these like terms, they both have s, so really what I do is I factor out the s, and then I have t minus m. Now again, we're viewing this as a number, so we got a number times s equals a number, just like we had 2x equals 8. So for me to get the variable by itself, I need to divide both sides by that number in front of it. So I'm going to divide both sides by t minus m. So s equals n over t minus m. Okay, so that's a technique that might be new to you. So the idea is, if you have more than one variable with more than one term with the variable you're trying to solve for, you got to get them all on one side, everything else on the other side. Factor that variable out, and then divide both sides by the number in front of the variable you're solving for. Okay, so let's try one more of those. See how you do. So number 44. D minus CT equals CA cubed. Solve it for C. So again, I got this term and this term with C in it. So my idea is to get them all on the same side. So I'm going to add CT to both sides. So those cancel. Then on this side I have CA cubed plus CT. Okay, what's the next step? So the next step would be to factor out the variable that I'm trying to solve for. And whether you put it in front or back, it doesn't matter. And then we want to get C by itself, so now we're going to divide by this parenthesis. So those, oh, I messed up. I'm factoring out the C, so what's left in here? A cubed plus T. So that's a T. Okay, so those cancel. You get C all by itself. D over A cubed plus T. There you go. All right. Now, covering mathematical models. So a mathematical model is basically just a formula or a set of formulas developed to represent real world situations. So we can use formulas to try to solve things that we encounter in real life. That's called mathematical models. So basically word problems. So this one's number 56 from the book. Holly is going to invest $950 at simple interest at 3%. How long will it take her for her investment to be worth $1,178? Okay, so we need to know that some formulas. So the balance of your account is going to be equal to principal plus your interest. So a lot of times we use A for balance. Sometimes you use B. I'm going to use A. Okay, so that's the balance of amount that's in your account. And then your simple interest formula is interest is equal to principal times rate times time. Okay, so we're going to use both these equations. So we want the account to be worth $11.78. Principal, we invested $950 plus interest. Well, interest, I'm going to use this formula for interest. PRT, but we know principal is $950. The interest rate is 3%. So this is the equation I need to solve. So we're going to get 950 times 0.03. My cheapy calculator here. 950 times 0.03 is 2850. Okay, let's subtract 950 from both sides. So 1178 minus 950 is 228. And we're going to divide both sides by 28.5. So time is equal to 8 years. So it will take 8 years for her account to have a balance or to be worth 1178. So 950 would be the principal, and the rest of it will be interest. And it'll take her 8 years to get that. Okay, so that concludes the lesson for 1.5. I'm going to go to my math lab and complete the homework there. See you next time.